This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to What the Health, an independent approach to your health span. Have you noticed how our healthcare system may not have your best interest in mind? Join Dr. Eckel in this fun and sometimes disturbing exploration of the state of healthcare and what it means for you. Now, here's your host, Dr. Eckel.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Dr. Greg Eckel, and this is What the Health. And we have a special surprise and esteemed guest, Jake Pates, of 2018 Olympian and lifelong snowboarder, Colorado native. He learned the importance of a strong and healthy body through the off-season training and sportsmanship and commitment. 2019, Jake sustained a head concussion while training in the half pipe, and which has, I think, determined a path forward for him going forward. So his journey back to health awakened him to the lack of objective data and concussion protocols, led him to seek out new technologies and treatments, and his journey led him to found healthy H2B, which is happy, healthy brain, and so that he could help others heal and maximize their brain performance. Jake, welcome to What the Health.
Thanks, Dr. Eckel. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah. I've been so psyched to get you on the show, talking about neurology, brain development, and in particular, concussions in sports, because you've lived it and you've went through the process and discovered how lacking basically the whole program protocol is. I wonder, will you take us through the journey here a bit for yourself and where you're at now? Because I do want to talk about your foundation. I want to talk about your business, and we want to talk about, educating people about healthy, happy brains too.
Yeah, thank you. So it's definitely important stuff to make sure that your brain is happy and healthy. And that's kind of my mission. So it really all started, I guess at a young age. My, mom taught me how to snowboard, and, started kind of getting into some smaller events. And I was just really lucky to have great parents that facilitated this love and passion for snowboarding from a young age. So I basically did it, from when I was 7 or 8 until about 20, 21 years old. And through the process, the sport was ever progressing. You gotta hold yourself to a high level of progression. So you have to be trying new tricks, and you have to be kind of pushing your comfort zone. And through that, I sustained a lot of head injuries. Not too many that were super serious. I never felt like I really had a bad concussion to the point where it really changed my everything for me in terms of being able to do everyday tasks and stuff like that. But a lot of repeated head injuries eventually caught up with me, and I ended up having one, like you mentioned, the season of 2019 2020 at an event. And it was really interesting because this concussion for me, I barely even hit my chin, and my jaw kind of clamped down, and I immediately started noticing symptoms of a concussion. I know it all too well. And just to kind of backtrack a little bit, before that head injury, I had gotten a EEG scan from a company that's based out in Denver. It's called WAVi Medical. They make a portable EEG device. And my brother's girlfriend's brother was an engineer for this company. And he said, before the season, hey, you should get a baseline brain scan in case anything happens. Because he knew how dangerous it was. And At that point, I was competing professionally, and the tricks and the risks associated are unfathomable. Really, it's a very dangerous sport. So I ended up getting a baseline brain scan before that season, and once I sustained that concussion, I was able to have consecutive brain scans throughout the process of my recovery and track my brain performance up until the point that it returned to the same performance as my healthy baseline. And that was, a very important piece to the puzzle for me to have the confidence to go back out to snowboarding and not risk a second impact. So that's really where this idea kind of sparked in my mind. And I said to myself, wow, I'm fortunate enough to have this opportunity where I've, been through all of these concussions, and I've been involved in action sports for so long. I was able to really be, I guess I don't want to be too doom and gloom about it, but I was really kind of a victim of the lack of objective information in concussion protocols. And after that concussion and after tracking my progress through recovery, COVID kind of hit in March of 2020. And I had all this downtime, and I had been wanting to start, a nonprofit. I ended up, deciding to start Happy Healthy Brain Foundation, developed a partnership with WAVi Medical, who makes the brain scanner. And our goal is to, basically do as many baselines as we can to help integrate this tech into sports concussion protocols to minimize second impacts and, a premature return to play.
That, so what is the current status, right? Is, I think the misunderstanding is, well, if you blacked out, that's a concussion, right? And what you shared with us is, no, it's all of these micro traumas. Like the thing that kind of put you over the edge was, you clenched your jaw hard. Yes, you had a head impact, but you probably sustained much worse in the past, right?
Right.
So what are current protocols now in sports, like concussions in sports? What is being said, rather than not what you're promoting, but what is the reality for athletes in the US, let's say right now?
Right. And the reality of it really motivated me to start this, because a lot of my friends have been victim to, and I feel like victim is a bad word, but have been subject to, poor objective information or lack thereof in concussion protocols. So yeah, I mean, my 9-year professional career and the 6 years prior, before I went professional, I never really objectively measured my brain performance. And it was interesting too, because I think they kind of have a grasp of it at the amateur levels, at least. We would do a baseline impact test, at least, and once I went professional, I had, a good 9-10 years competing at that level, and never once, measured my brain or did a baseline exam or, even anything subjective in the form of a questionnaire or something like that to get a baseline. So the reality of it is there's not much for objective information, if any, in sports concussion protocols. And I think it's pretty widespread among sports, and especially professional.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like one of the biggest pieces of you functioning at a high level and elite status is we really need to be looking under the hood for folks. Like we use the WAVi here at the clinic as well. And, I'm using it for screening for, early cognitive decline, which we can talk about later in the show, because I know that you're doing some research there. Called an evoked action potential P300, which is a reaction time. But what did you find so you had this baseline and then had the injury and then kind of did a serial analysis of rehab and getting your brain back to kind of pre-accident status. What did it look like? So for folks that don't know, what we're talking about is electroencephalogram, which is a 19 lead read of all of the electrical activity of the brain. So maybe share some of that with us.
Yeah. And like you're saying, it's a cortical measurement of, the frequencies coming off of your brain and in different areas. And these things can change due to trauma. Obviously, even things like lifestyle changes, cardiovascular fitness, things like that. But what I really saw in my post-concussion WAVi scan was a decrease in my brain's reaction voltage, which is basically how much you can think of it as like horsepower of the brain, right? For the people that don't know, that are listening, basically how much electricity your brain's emitting in the form of microvolts. So that's a millionth of a volt. And mine decreased a lot. I think I went from, I'm trying to remember. I think it was I was at 27 microvolts for my baseline. And it ended up going down to, I want to say it was like 16, 17, 18, something like that. And the normal day-to-day variation of microvolts is only plus or minus 2. So anything outside of that is really significant. So to have something drop, anywhere from 6 to 10 microvolts is pretty significant. And we see that a lot with concussions, through the last couple of years of trying to accomplish the mission of my foundation. We've scanned a lot of people with TBI. We've scanned a lot of people with acute post-concussion. And it's a trend, it's actually a non-specific marker that WAVi uses for acute concussion. Your brain reaction voltage decreases, your horsepower decreases. I also saw a decrease in the physical reaction time. So with the evoked response potential test that you're talking about, the P300, for those that don't know, you get an auditory stimuli and you have to click the space bar or click the mouse once you hear that. And the software, the WAVi software, will measure your response time, among a lot of other things. But my physical reaction time, the amount of time it took for my instincts to kick in for me to hit that button once I heard the tone, that really got slower as well. And then I think some other things that I saw as well that I actually went back and checked the more I learned about the technology and learned more about the metrics was my coherence. So the coherence marker, essentially, there was an increase in coherence, meaning a decrease in the communication from different regions of my brain. So yeah, among some of the things that I was seeing.
Wow. And what you brought up the acute and prolonged phases of concussion. So a lot of folks don't, again, it's like the old school method is, well, if you blacked out, that's a significant head trauma and you need to stay awake all night because you could die in your sleep, right? Like, so, but there's a lot of nuances in here. Like that is not correct information anymore. So for those listening, if you've got kids in sports, soccer, football, skiing, the winter sports, etc., hockey, I'm a hockey fan and player through college. You have a cumulative building up of the micro traumas that then can send you over the edge. But then there's acute versus prolonged stages. So maybe unpack that for us.
Yeah, of course. And those are, things that you can measure with this technology, which is a big part of the reason why I'm trying to integrate it into sports, concussion protocols. So yeah, you can have an acute concussion. I think it's something like 80% of people recover within 7 to 14 days from an acute concussion. And those 20% that don't kind of transition from acute to prolonged phases where their brain performance is still tainted. And through that process, comes all kinds of mental health issues, mood changes, personality changes, whatever it looks like. For me, like I was saying, I kind of went back and looked at that and saw changes in coherence. That was a non-specific marker that WAVi identified in a retrospective analysis of their 4-year concussion study they did that was published in 2020. And they, found that coherence was a non-specific marker for prolonged concussion. And for me, I had, that was really the only time I was able to measure my experience with a concussion and actually measure my brain performance. But just like many other times, I was experiencing, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, some of which were physical, vertigo, stuff like that. And yeah, it really, I think, caught up to me. So many repeated head injuries. Obviously, we know that you get more susceptible the more head injuries you get. And you could probably speak better to this. But it's a metabolic syndrome essentially. So, the neurons firing and the different chemical imbalances in your brain are really the basis of a concussion.
Yeah. Once that process starts, if you don't do anything to kind of put the fire out on the brain, it continues to ramp up with reactive oxidative species, ROS, and that inflammatory cascade continues. And that's why it's like that component of micro traumas that then become the macro. It just kind of keeps building until you put that fire out. And, it's interesting, right? Because we are in youth sports and the amateur component, we have a little bit of awareness around it, but then you get into professional sports and, it's like, that's an important piece of you. And without it, you're not able to function at that elite status. And then there's like a lack of support or awareness around it, which it's just kind of a total disconnect. So I'm really, I was so excited to meet with you and hear about your Healthy, Happy Brain Foundation. And then also what you're doing, with your other business as well, with the baseline neuro with the neurotropics and kind of basically brain food. So you've done some research, you self-funded some research. Tell us about that. Like, what did you find with that?
Yeah. So we self-funded a concussion study, man, I'm trying to remember the dates. This was kind of a while ago. We self-funded a concussion study with the US Olympic team, and their head neurologist. And so basically, we had the people that they were seeing on a day-to-day basis with sports concussion come in, mostly kids, I believe. They'd come in, they would get scanned by the WAVi device. And, basically they would use the WAVi device as they would go through their normal protocol. And so, yeah, we're really trying to just collect information on how this technology could be used in a clinical sense for, concussion recovery. And that's, it's the device itself has been proven to be a very important part of the piece of the puzzle for concussion assessment. Basically, WAVi did a 4-year concussion study with the University of Colorado football team and some surrounding schools. That was published in 2020. They came up with, non-specific markers for acute concussion. Then they did the retrospective analysis of that study, came up with the non-specific markers for prolonged concussion. And so the research is really important to me. And that's something that, we're pursuing, not only in concussion, but also for things like neurodegenerative disease, and just all types of cognitive deficits, really. Anything that anything that we can assess, we'll assess. So got some things in the works that are really exciting. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, the research is really, really important to me. So
why is that for you? Why?
I think because I really got a few things. I got a firsthand look on how, on the concussion side, these things can affect not only you, but your whole family. I mean, like I was saying, I've had, mental health issues derived from concussions, especially after that last one. I think a lot of the repeated concussions caught up to me. But I've learned how, it's really important to make sure you're not going back to play too early and getting a second impact. And the way that I bring awareness to the decision makers, so to speak, is by getting that data, collecting the data, doing the research, collating it, proving the concept, and then showing these people, time after time after time, we've done the research, we've proved this. So that whole process is really important to getting things done in terms of integrating this technology into concussion protocols. And it's, also through my own experience and also friends' experience with concussions, and just mental health issues in general, I've had a lot of friends die by suicide. And it kind of seems like it just is never ending. Every once in a while, another one goes. And it's really evident to me that there needs to be a bigger focus and a bigger emphasis on things we can do to improve, mental health resources. So, that's another thing that contributes to it being important. Also, my grandfather's had dementia for what we think is like the last 10 years, but now really catching up to him. And, recently just put him in a memory care home. And it's just tough to see. It's just tough to see that stuff happen. And I've really just come to realize your brain is everything. Your brain is you. It's funny. I think it was an Elon Musk quote, could be wrong, something like that. But he had said, or someone had said, when you damage your brain, you damage your consciousness. And our consciousness really is everything. So it's just really fascinating space to be in. And that's why it's important to me. So
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Because, there's different motivating components behind that. And I'm full on board. And again, why I wanted to get you on the show and help get the word out for folks on your foundation and on your baseline neuro as well. It is, without our brains, if we're not able to access that prefrontal cortex, we can't hit creativity and drop down into our hearts and creating the more beautiful world our hearts know and desire. So that's my purpose and passion, and really helping people get their brains back from neurodegeneration to brain health, even into longevity and high performance, et cetera. And really this overlapping component that I think a lot of people don't realize that mental illness repercussions of the head injuries, right? With sustained head traumas, there's impulse control, there's mood disorders, there's sleep problems. And, a lot of those issues can lead into suicidal tendencies and thoughts and actually acting on it. And it is, it just sucks, right? I mean, because wow, we could be doing so much more for these athletes and folks, even kids. I mean, it's just rampant in all sports. What are you finding as you're going out? Like, your goal right now is to get as many brain scans as possible. What are some of the things that you've picked up for people that they had no clue?
Yeah, it's man, it has been a journey for sure. And it's been a battle. I think I knew that going in, but I didn't necessarily expect that it would be as tough to get the word across, educate people, bring awareness to this as it has been. Something I've been finding and struggling with, is that a lot of the parents of these kids, and I don't mean to generalize, but they don't have the education on, why this is super important for your kids to measure their brain performance, especially in sports. So there's a lack of need for it. And that's been a big challenge is really getting the education across, the awareness across why this is important. We're really also working towards just integrating this tech into healthcare systems as a whole, because like we've been talking about, it's not only beneficial for, sports concussion, it's also beneficial for mental health disorders in general, mild cognitive impairment, neurodegenerative diseases and such. So, it's just been tough also to kind of fund this. So that's why I started the for-profit as well. I spent so much of my own money just trying to keep this nonprofit alive. And I had retired from snowboarding. I'm retired now, and was, kind of faced with a decision to make a living some other way. So I started the for-profit and
Sure.
We're all doing research and stuff, but yeah, it's definitely a gorilla of a problem to tackle. But I think it was interesting in our introduction, you know, a close friend, PJ, had brought up that if enough of us band together, we can get it done, or at least, you know, make more progress towards it. So yeah, we just all got to get together and make it happen.
When you say resistance, I mean, is there like people don't want to get their kids' brain scanned, or they're skeptical of the tech, or what happens there? Like, what is it?
Yeah, you know, it's I honestly think it stems from I think it stems from the cost associated. Really, you know, part of doing this is, you know, we wanted to make this as cost effective as possible. We wanted to make this really affordable for people. So, you know, we're offering $100 baselines, and $100, and it's actually a donation. You don't have to donate if you don't want to. You know, we also will cover, you know, the scans for people that don't have the means to pay for it. But I think that's one of the big things that I've run into is like, wow, guys, $100 donation to a foundation that will, you know, help cover it for someone who doesn't have the needs, so you can protect your child from developing, you know, mental health issues derived from concussions.
Right.
And that's just like the awareness part. You know, if we can really bring education and awareness to these people to say, look, guys, the danger of head injuries and the repercussions of those lie in returning to play too soon, returning to play before you've healed. That's where the danger lies, and that's what we're trying to prevent. Also, I think there's just like a stigma around kind of brushing it off, you know, and we are
like tough it out type of thing.
In sports, you know, I think that's just how people are. You know, you gotta be tough to, you know, to play. So
sure.
That's also something. But yeah, I think if I could say anything, if, you know, those parents listening are interested and might have reservations about, you know, doing the scan, guys, this is something that, you know, is an insurance policy, essentially to protect your kids from, or yourself, you know, if you're an adult that does sports, to protect you from developing unnecessary, you know, mental health issues or brain health issues that you would get if you return to play too early and sustain another concussion. So,
because the risks of that, right, going back too soon, you already have it's like the smoking gun is already there, and it's like that second bullet that has even worse repercussions as far as recovery times. Can you even come back from that, depending on how big a sustained hit or concussion that you hit? What are you noticing? So you can also use this tech for determining when is the appropriate time. Like you mentioned for yourself, you notice like, hey, I got my scans back to pre-accident status. So there is a way that you can use the tech on a serial testing component rather than just, you know, the old H in space and proprioception from the neurologist to clear you for game readiness. Are other professional sports teams using this, or I mean, it seems like it's the biggest asset in professional sports. You know, you have these bodies, you're paying millions of dollars for these guys and gals to perform, and the biggest asset is the brain in there. It seems like that is, pun intended, a no-brainer to do this, right?
Yeah, completely. You're 100% on the money there. I think we are making progress, and WAVi's making progress as well. You know, they're starting a rugby concussion study to integrate this tech in England, and you know, that's a big step forward. There's a BBC article that just came out on that. I'll have to send your way. But great. Yeah, I mean, essentially, this technology is very disruptive to the space. I feel like a lot of the brain assessment technology leading up until 2016, 2017 has been around for so long, decades. So this technology really is revolutionizing the brain assessment industry. And, you know, there's a lot of pushback from clinics that are currently using a standard EEG and stuff like that. So, yeah, you know, there's hurdles in the way, but like you said, this is, probably the biggest asset that you could have as far as, for a sports team, at least to, assess brain function. So, I'm pretty confident that things will, keep heading in a positive direction. I feel like there's hurdles with anything, and especially a disruptive technology in the medical space. That's just kind of how it is.
Sure.
But yeah, and also this technology is FDA cleared as an aid to diagnosis. So, it's a piece of the puzzle. I didn't use this technology myself and then clear myself. Obviously you could do that if you were to get one yourself, but this is something that is supposed to be used as an aid to diagnosis in a doctor's office, with their medical opinion on what the data says. So, I was consulted from, a medical professional on what the data looked like. And that gave me the confidence to say, all right, I was good to go back. And that's, that's where the value is here. So.
And are you, just for you personally, you're back out snowboarding? I mean, not at that elite professional front, but I'm guessing you still live in Colorado. You love to do that. You're out and you don't have any worries on it.
Yeah, no, I think I was pretty subject to like PCS for a while. But over the last 2 years, I've done a lot as far as, supplements, nootropics, functional neurology, cranial sacral therapy, hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy, audio visual brainwave entrainment. I've done so many therapies and treatments to the point where I feel like I feel great now. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I feel great now and I've learned so much that I wish, I could go back and treat the concussions with the same attention that I did these last couple of years. Cause I feel like I'm ready to go back in, but no, it's great. I go snowboarding and I'm not worried. I'm not really doing anything too crazy. So
yeah. Awesome. So then you've even spawned another company called Baseline Neuro. So what are you doing in that area?
Yeah. So Baseline Neuro is essentially a data collection company. So we're focusing on the neurodegenerative space. We're focusing on just pure brain performance, brain enhancement. We're focusing also on concussions, and then also like neurotherapeutic devices. So essentially we'll come in and do a bunch of brain scans with WAVi to collect data for a company that is trying to do research.
Got it. Okay. So folks will use your data set. So people kind of get plugged in anonymously, and then you've got that data in there. Is that connected up with your foundation too, or different?
Yeah, just completely different entities. Foundation's a nonprofit, purely trying to implement this for sports concussion. And then, started a for-profit to just conduct research really and try to contribute to the knowledge that we have about these issues. So,
yeah. Oh, cool. And are you doing some work around with neurotropics in the data collection, or that's a separate thing as well?
Yeah, that's with the for-profit. So yeah, we've done a few different studies. One, I don't want to go into too much, but yeah, it's very fascinating. We used one supplement, and I'm not trying to, throw an advertisement out there. So
no, but I asked you, and like, whatever, if it's not published and you've got proprietary stuff, like keep that under wraps until it's ready for prime time. But I was just curious on what's happening.
Yeah, of course. No, it's so fascinating. We're really looking at things that can improve brain performance. So, increased brain reaction voltage, increased brain reaction speed, cognitive processing speed. We're looking at things that can improve executive function, working memory. We're looking at things that are spoken of to improve neuroplasticity, and seeing how that looks on the coherence map. So it's really cool. And I've been blessed to work closely with the guys over at WAVi, on learning, the metrics and the data, and the whole science thing is really fascinating to me. But but yeah, it's just it's a great thing to be a part of. I'm blessed. And yeah, I just want to do my part in contributing to the information we have on, the things we can do to better these problems. So.
Awesome. Why did you start the Baseline Neuro?
Yeah. So Baseline Neuro, like I was saying, I really started just because the nonprofit I started was, and has been very financially tolling. And I kind of started that right, in 2020 as COVID hit, as I was recovering from this concussion, and then decided to retire from snowboarding. So I really didn't have a means of work or making money. I was really just kind of pouring it all into this nonprofit. So
Yeah,
I decided I need to, start a company, and if it was anything, it was going to be something contributing to health. So.
love it. Love it. And what are you excited about? What do you see? Where do you see this industry going, or what's the future hold as far as, if in the Jake Pates world, if you had the magic wand to make it happen, where are we going with this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a really good question. I think really just contributing as much as possible to the information and the data that we have, the research. I want to also make sure that there isn't kids returning to play too soon and sustaining second impacts. That's really probably the biggest motivator for all of this for me is not only myself, but like I was saying, friends and stuff being subject to head injuries and then developing mental health issues, and that affecting their lives, even cutting them short, affecting their families' lives, friends' lives, and stuff like that. So I really want to if I could just shoot out my wildest goal with this, it's that every kid would have a baseline that's in sports,
Yeah.
even and I say kids because that I think is a good way to start. I think people are they're drawn to keeping their kids safe, especially parents. But even for parents, everybody's likes to do something, and a lot of that something is outdoor sports, action sports, stuff that is concussion prone. So I really want to just try to impact that space as much as possible and prevent concussion derived mental health issues. So
Love it. Yeah, the saying that comes to mind, it's about the children. It's about the children. But
yeah, exactly.
But you're right, for all of the adults too. There are these components of, I think, a misunderstanding around addictions, around mental health issues and problems, where it may have stemmed from a head trauma. That people are, kind of maybe taking medications, or, with alcoholism or other addictions, they're really trying to treat themselves while it's dysfunctional and destructive. But underlying that, I think if we were able to look at some brain scans, I know there's some innovative addiction centers that are doing EEGs, not the WAVi tech, but similar functioning and showing amazing results with balancing brain waves and training that way. And to see, you got to start somewhere, right? So I think you're wise on the populations. Like, let's just get a brain scan on all of these kids on a tri-county area of where you're at, right? That's kind of like where the base is, or are you going nationwide with that right now with the foundation?
Yeah, well, certainly keeping it local at the moment, but I think as a long-term goal, nationwide.
Sure.
Why not? Sky's the limit. But also a lot of what I've been interested in recently with the research side of things is the research side, and I guess concussions works into this too, but also serving like underprivileged populations, people that might not have the means to go to a clinic and get a $300 WAVi scan, or a $200 WAVi scan, or a $1,700 normal EEG scan. So, and these things are important. These things can catch, brain issues, really brain disorders and things like that. So that's also something.
I love that. Can you share anything about like initial testing with kind of the youth of what you're doing now? Like share any success stories around, kids that have sustained, they got the baseline and then they, had a head trauma during that sporting season. And then the ability of tracking and really releasing them back into the wild, into their sport in a really safe way.
Yeah. It's tough. And that's a really good question. I wish I had a better answer for you.
Yeah.
But I think it really comes down to, we took our first year and a half, trying to figure out the best way possible to get as many baselines done on kids as we could. So we did that. We went to a couple local schools and tried to work with the superintendents, the principals, to get all the students scanned. Because they're doing things like football and obviously skiing here in the mountains and whatnot. So, but the problem there is that we weren't able to get it mandated. We weren't able to get it mandated and actually set up a full protocol. And I honestly, I wish I just had a better answer for why we couldn't set that up. I think we just ran into roadblocks as far as, the school not wanting to put pressure on the parents to do this, or,
liability. Yeah.
So yeah, we had trouble getting people to come back for their post-concussion scan. We've done a few of them, and it's actually, I guess I do have, a couple stories. We had a local kid that, got knocked out, hit his head really hard, had a baseline from, a couple months prior. I scanned him a couple times. We consulted with partner neurologist for my foundation, Dr. Assad. He's great, TBI board certified, and just an all around really great guy, really great medical professional. And then, we were able to get this kid into his local primary care physician and get that second opinion. And then, eventually he was ready to return to play. So there's been a couple of those instances, but it is somewhat frustrating, and I don't mean to be, negative about this, but it is frustrating kind of getting people to return, for their post-concussion scan. So it's,
why do you think that is? Is it that because they're feeling so good that they just feel like they don't need to look again, or what, what is that?
Yeah, I think that could be part of it. For sure. I also feel like it's maybe just not as familiar to people as it could be yet. That comes into the awareness thing as well. But also, I think if there is a protocol in place with the primary care physicians, with the hospital executives, that can mandate this and make it a resource for people and say, guys, look, this is here for you. Then it kind of makes everything easier. And so that's really what we're doing now. I've kind of taken a step back. We're trying to set up this ecosystem of care for the community. And, we're trying to set up a go-to protocol for people. They get a head injury, they ideally have a baseline, but if they don't, they get a head injury, they get a WAVi scan, they continue to get subsequent scans and get consults from, the PTs that are doing brain and balance care, or the neurologists that, we have as a partner of our foundation, and they work with the primary care physicians, and then they get referred out to treatment. They get more scans after their treatment. Obviously the treatment kind of comes into play if it, transitions to prolonged phases, the concussion. And then, they get a final consult, a final WAVi scan, and they're ideally showing that they're all good to go, and we send them back. So
check. Yeah. That I think, that component, because I'm wanting to really, I'm going to solicit our viewers and listeners to, if you know anybody that has had head trauma or concussions, please share this show with them. But also, if you know any decision makers at any universities, any sports teams, etc., like be sure extra special to send this out, because this, I really want to get some energy behind your foundation, and also this brain awareness component. Currently we're filming in June. This is Brain Awareness Month, so it's really apropos that we made it happen this month for this. And it's that component around mental health disorders, mental illness. This really needs to be considered in the differential diagnosis. I have a lot of providers that listen to the show as well. So for education around that, really looking at some tech. Is there other tech that you're also looking at with the baseline neuro, as far as bringing in more information into that platform for you? Anything on the horizon there?
Sure. Yeah. The research side of things is interesting. One of the kind of pilot proof of concept studies that we just wrapped up with a nootropic company is using different, I don't want to say too much, but using different types of assessments,
Sure.
All kinds of assessments, not specifically looking at brain performance. So like I said earlier, this is a piece of the puzzle, and there's many pieces of the puzzle, just like anything. So it's not the end all be all, but it's certainly a great tool to aid in the process of assessment. I mean, if you're listening, please, spread the word about, brain awareness and the things we can do to help, measure and improve. So
I love it. Now I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. So hopefully I don't catch you off guard on this, but it's because it's not every day that you get to talk to an Olympian, past Olympian. And so looking at, performance and mindset, what kind of advice do you have for folks around, because that's a different mindset that you have to be in when you're talking about, I'm going to be the best in the world in this sport. Where's the motivation come from for that type of performance? Where did it come from for you?
Yeah, it's, oh man, I feel like it's a lot of things, but to kind of narrow it down to the decision makers, for me to want to be, a professional snowboarder and pursue that. I think one came from just love of sport and how much fun it was. And then, kind of tying in that with the opportunity to make it a career and make it a lifestyle. It really, I think the biggest thing really just stems from the fun of it and the love I have for it. I was lucky enough to do this at a young age, and I just developed like this love for it. So it was really, for me, I just kind of had one track mind. There wasn't anything else that I really was interested in or wanted to do. I don't think I wasn't gonna stop until, I really achieved a satisfying level in my mind. Unfortunately, I really do feel like it was cut short due to just repeated head injuries and kind of bad decisions. But the one track mind, the athlete mind is definitely a different thing, especially being kind of post retirement for a while now. I'm realizing like, life is made up of so many different things. So it's crazy to just be all 100% in on one thing. Life is about a lot of different things, but I owe it to just kind of love of sport and fun doing it, really.
Love it. And I'm curious. So when, like, growing up, I'm guessing you had a lot of friends that you all began together, but so they just got burnt out or maybe injured along the way. I mean, there's that component, I think. I'm wondering if that's true or if that's just Dr. Greg making that up.
No,
because you maintain the fun aspect of it, right?
Yeah, no, you're completely right. You're completely right. And the fun aspect, unfortunately, but I want to be honest, kind of faded towards the end of my career, and definitely played into, a big factor of ending the professional competition side of it. But I've seen so many friends over the years, lose interest, and a lot of that plays into kind of like these external pressures that you have to show up at the event. There's money on the line. There's sponsors on the line. If you're, and a lot of us, it's kind of crazy, but a lot of us, and actually the majority of us, do this with this one track mind, and then you're done and you don't know what you're going to do.
Right.
I fell subject to that as well, but yeah, you're totally right. I mean, injuries you have so many friends that you come up doing this with, and you find yourself 10 years later with new friends, and new people around you, because, they're the ones that kind of lasted, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, it was a crazy journey for sure.
Wow. Well, coming down to the last bit of the show, anything else that you would like to share with our listeners and viewers out there?
Yeah, not really. I'd like to just kind of keep it simple. I feel like I talked a lot, but treat your brain with respect. Your brain is you, controls everything, and it can really change the course of your life. So make sure you're treating your brain with respect. But
I love it. Yeah. That component that you shared too, and I really want to emphasize it, which was, I always ask the question before the show around what is the one actionable step that you can do that people can take action on. And your response is so succinct, is don't return to the sport or physical activity until it's safe to do so following the injury. So, your message is loud and clear. Get the baseline brain scan. And then if you have any event or episode, then get another one so that what has occurred, then get into the therapeutics. And I wanted to share with you a story of a woman that I treated. She had a massive head injury. And when I saw her, basically she was really depressed, had a lot of other mental illness as a result, because basically, she had a high school education, and they said, well, that's it. She went through all of the general protocols, and dumped at the end of the road. Thankfully, she found us here, and we did our own assessment, and we do acupuncture and hyperbaric therapy, physical medicine and nutraceuticals, diet therapy, movement therapy. And she has gone on, she got her master's and then a PhD and went into counseling. And, and this is a woman that had been through the ringer, saw all of the experts and went to the specialists, and was just left depressed because they're like, well, there's nothing else for you. So, anybody listening, just know, folks are out there working for you. We're trying to advance medicine with the research. I as a clinician, really want to move the needle for people and make a difference and get this word out, but also provide some hope that all is not lost. Just keep asking the questions of like, who can I see? Who can help with this? So if you're a parent or if you're an athlete that has been hurt, get in touch with us. I've got all of Jake's information in the show notes on all of the various areas that you can connect up with him and his research and what he's doing in his business and in the foundation. Anybody that has connections, maybe into some foundations that really want to support brain research and et cetera, let's get them in touch with Jake, and let's get, more brain awareness out there into the world. Jake, I really want to thank you for coming on, sharing your story, and all of the work that you're up to is inspiring. And again, anything that we can do to help support, please. I know we're going to be in touch for a long time. That's why I wanted to get you on the show and have this conversation with you. Anything else? Any inspiring last words for folks?
Man, it's hard to follow up what you just said. You're on the dot there. It's there's so many people out there that can help, and it, you might feel like you lose hope in the current healthcare system, but keep looking for resources. Please reach out to me. Please, ask me questions. I'm here for you to help. Really to help, and don't lose hope. There's hope. You just got to look for it, and you just got to find it. So
Awesome. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is What the Health. We are here Tuesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Contact Talk Radio. If you like today's show, please go out there, give us a 5-star review. Those matter. And put down in your review what you learned today about brain health and what you can do. And share this show with 2 family members, friends, community. Let's get the word out because our brains are that important. Till next week.
Thanks, Dr. Eckel.
Thank you.